Good morning. This is Chris Cheatham with Risk Genius, and today I'm going to show you the Risk Genius software and how underwriters use this to review forms, analyze forms, and really speed up their document review processes involving insurance policies. So first I'm going to get logged in. Everyone has their own username and password. That allows us to track activities, see what people are doing, provide reports around that. So I just landed on the dashboard of the Risk Genius tool. So right off the gate, I'm going to go select the Risk Genius client so that we can use some of our demo documents. On the left-hand side, you can see folders. You can see an upload button. You can see an uploads folder. You can see a recents folder, so you can access your most recent documents. So lots of different ways. These folders can be nested within each other. You can actually invite users to have access to those folders. So your basic document management tools that you would expect. Right off the bat then, I'm going to take you over to Genius Search. This is our first machine learning supported tool within the Risk Genius platform. And so one of the common problems we would hear about from insurance underwriters was that they couldn't find the documents they need quickly. And that's a problem because you'll have tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of forms within an insurance organization. And a lot of times those documents are stored in a basic document management system like Documentum or SharePoint. And you can really only search the title of the document. Maybe you can search the text as well, but you really can't pinpoint clauses that you need in these documents. So we wanted to help people do that. So I'm going to do a simple example to start. I'm going to go search for the keyword war. And as you can see, clauses are then returned that contain the keyword war. That happened almost instantly in a database of hundreds of thousands of clauses. But we wanted to go further than that and be more like a Google-like search, right? So let's do war that includes terrorism or government or authority, right? And I misspelled terrorism. That doesn't really matter. If I do a keyword search, I'm going to get no results because this is what I call an idea or a concept. It's how people think, but it's not necessarily how people write. And so I'm going to go do a phrase search instead. So what's going to happen now is this particular search term, these words are scored against all the clauses in the database with a machine learning platform that we call Johan internally. And then this phrase is then scored against these clauses. And the most responsive clauses are returned. So here you can see a war exclusion with a score of 95 from this particular insurance policy. And I can scroll down and see lots of options. A lot of these are exclusions for war or definitions of war, and then the related scores. So that's a very quick way to find a policy clause that you need, maybe to respond to a broker, respond to a customer. You can copy that to your clipboard. You can do a whole lot of stuff with that information. There's also these filters built in, so you can limit your search by state. You could also just select one particular clause category that's of interest to you. Maybe it's like cause of lost fire. You can run a search and just pull up all the examples of cause of lost fire clauses in your database. You could do a quick search of the comments that have been made in documents or the file names, or you can search clauses, comments, and file names, all three. And you can limit your search to folders. So if your documents are broken out by line of business, you could go in and say, I just want to search cyber policies. And then when you run your search, you'll be limited to just clauses in that particular folder. So lots of different ways to run your search, restrict your search, limit your search, and find that clause you need very fast. All right, so that is Genius Search. I'm going to go in and play with some cyber policies now to show you some additional functionality. So we're going to let's open up an AIG policy. So this is an AIG liability wording policy for cyber. As you can see, the document appears on the screen. I'm going to zoom out just a bit in my browser because I like to be able to see more of the page. So you can see the document. You can see clause categories over here on the right-hand side of the screen. Where the words are underlined, you can go and highlight that word and actually see that definition as it exists in the document as well. So this is the definition of insured in extended reporting periods definition. On the right-hand side, like I mentioned, are the clause categories. So if you know what you're looking for, you can go click on that. So let's say I want to review the definition of data. I click on that clause category, and it goes and highlights it for me in the policy. And then I can go and actually comment on that. So I can say, this is a narrow definition of data. That comment can be private to just me, or I can make it a public comment for my group. I'm going to add that comment right now. You'll see then the comments appear under the Comments tab. And so these comments are all tied to the clauses that they are related to. So previously on April 4th, 2018 at 7:48 a.m., I said we need a broader definition in reference to this definition of claim. People can reply, so this is where collaboration starts to come into play. So another user could come in and say, why do you think this is narrow? And then you can even add somebody's name. I'll add Matea's name to this, and you can hit reply. When I do that, two things happen. I will receive an email notification saying somebody has replied to my comment because I had the parent comment right here. And Matea, because I notified him, will also receive an email notification. So both of us will get emails that say, someone has a question for you in Risk Genius, please come take a look. There'll be a link, you click the link and you land right here, and then you can respond in kind. So that is clauses, that's how you use the clause categories, that's how you access the comments, that's how you make comments. There's also a very simple find functionality so you can find keywords in your document. Now I'm going to move on to rules. So let's imagine you're reviewing broker manuscript of policies, or you just need to review based on some sort of checklist that you have. Genius rules are a really handy way of doing that. We have a platform, we have a different page where you can go set up Genius rules, and users can do this themselves, so you don't have to rely on the Risk Genius team to set up your rules, although we can certainly help you do that. Now I'm going to go turn on rules, and I'm just going to turn them on for every line of business. But again, you can tie your rules to certain lines of business. And so let's apply those rules and see what's been identified. Now you can see 4 clause categories have been identified as red, which is needs review. So if I click on the definition of insured, it goes and highlights that clause for me. I can then approve or reject that clause. I can also view, it says don't mess with Nick's ruling. Who knows what that means, but that's the information that's been provided to me. So I'm going to go and approve this clause. This is okay because Nick said so. So I add that comment. Once I add that comment and approve the document, it gets moved down to the bottom. So there's the clause, and then I can scroll back up and do the remaining 3 clause categories. So that's Genius Rules. It's really helpful for insurance underwriters, particularly on the commercial property side, where brokers oftentimes submit manuscript of policies. This is a great way to review those. So that is Genius Rules. So we've now looked at clauses, comments, how to review a document, how to use rules to review a document. You can also export out your document with those rules attached, with your comments attached. You can see this download button right here. Obviously, I'm not covering every functionality, every feature in the software. I'm just trying to cover some of the highlights, some of the bigger use cases. Okay, the next example is compare. So let's go ahead and compare a couple documents. And I'm going to grab that AIG policy again, and this time I'm going to grab also an Allianz document. So these are 2 cyber policies. The typical use case for this feature is where an underwriter needs to create a new product or evaluate their existing product against the market. And so question we get often, can I bring in competitor policies? Absolutely. Carriers oftentimes, almost always bring in competitor policies as part of their workload. At the very beginning of a project, we will work with you to figure out what's the scope of your documents. We will then upload those documents. We can do that from the back end if you have a big bulk upload. You can also upload documents in real time with this green button. You just drag here and you're good to go. So I'm going to run a comparison right now. And now you can see here's the AIG policy on the left. The Allianz policy is loading up. It has a watermark specimen, so it takes a little bit longer to load. So now I have AIG policy and Allianz policy. AIG's in blue. You can see this blue bar at the top. Allianz is in green. And again, you have the categories on the right, but this time you see these green or blue markers, or both. Where there's a blue and green marker, that means that that particular clause category is in both policies. Where you see just blue, that means it's just in the AIG policy. Where it's green, it's just in the Allianz policy. So if I scroll down, let's go look at the definition of company's computer system. It's a clause common to both policies. And you can see those two clauses right next to each other then. There's their definition, there's that definition. That's at this point, I like to go use the redlining feature. So if I hit redline, those two clauses then become redlined against each other. Obviously, they're worded completely different in this case, so you're going to see a lot of redline. You can actually turn that redline off and see the clauses next to each other as well, if the redline is not all that beneficial. You can also comment on clauses. So you could go in and say the AIG clause is narrower than the Allianz clause. You can apply that comment then to the comparison that you're viewing on the screen, or just one of the two clauses. In this case, I'm talking about both, so I'm going to do it on the comparison. And now I'm set. So that is how you review. You can go through. Obviously, we have a redline all. I'm not going to redline both these documents because they're completely different. But if you're going from one edition to a new edition, or one version to a new version, this is a way to quickly see what's changed in those two documents. Rules works really well too. You can set up rules and review them and apply them maybe to one document or the other, or both. You can download. The download actually is very helpful, particularly if you're going to review more than two policies. So in that compare screen previously in the dashboard, I selected two policies, but if you select more than two, obviously you only see two on the screen here. That's because it's the best way to present the data. If we start jamming in more documents, it would not be a good user experience. But you can actually export out an Excel spreadsheet that lines the policies up, no matter how many you selected, shows you the common clauses, and lets you review those. Let's see, what else? Yeah, so that's some of the key features, some of the key highlights. Again, comments. What's interesting is the comments will trail the document. So previously, I said in April 17, 2017, well over a year ago, this is not AAA, right? And I was referring to this arbitration clause. And so that clause comment now trails out that document, even if I'm doing a comparison, which is really helpful. You can start building up a lot of institutional knowledge in the form of these digital comments. That is the comparison feature. Okay, so now I'm going to show you one last feature. This is our analytics feature. It actually solves a problem that we were presented with at the very beginning of Risk Genius. So I'm going to go to analytics, and we had a carrier that came to us and said, hey, we have 10,000 commercial general liability forms, and we need to figure out how many times we've defined the word environment. Could you help us? We now have carriers that come to us and say, hey, we have a bad court ruling that came down on a particular clause. We need to figure out how many of our forms have that clause. Can you help us? So you could use Genius Search, but this is a better way to do it oftentimes, because now you can score your clauses against each other and figure out where you have variations and similarities. So in column 1, I'm going to select my benchmark policy. So I'm going to select this AIG policy. And then I'm going to go select the clause category that I want to focus on. And I'm going to go do definition of claim. And then you select the policies you're comparing to. So since I'm looking at a cyber policy and its definition of claim, I want to compare that to other cyber policies. So I'm going to click on this folder. It adds all those documents over here in the folder for what I'm comparing against. And then I'm going to run my report. This will take just a moment to run. And so what's happening is the AIG definition of claim is being scored against all the other definitions of claim in these policies that I've selected. You can see a simple data visualization over here on the left-hand side. So AIG obviously gets a score of 100 because it's scored against itself. Then Universal Sampo with a score of 70 is the most similar clause in terms of defining claim as compared to this AIG clause. I can also export out a report. So I'm going to go pull an Excel spreadsheet. This is how I like to look at this data. And let me expand that for you. I'll shrink this particular column. So now you can see here's AIG's definition of claim, score of 100. Now here is Universal Sampo's definition of claim, score of 70. So those are the most similar two clauses right there in regards to all the cyber policies that define claim. And then you start scrolling down and you see additional variations, right? So RSA, AIG, kind of interesting. The AIG uses this definition as opposed to others. Yeah, and so you can very quickly use this to evaluate a market, or you can use this to rationalize your own internal policy language, particularly if there's been a lot of manuscripting that might have gone astray. So that is analytics. Let me close that up. So that is Risk Genius. The next big kind of feature module that we're building is our manuscripting module, where people can change text, edit text, and keep track of the communications that go on when that new text is being drafted or manuscripted. So that is the demo of Risk Genius. My name is Chris Cheatham. I'll type my email address right here so you can come in and email me anytime. Chris@riskgenius.com. Happy to hear from you. Thanks for your time, and have a great day.